Welcome to the Hidden Timeline, where forgotten truths return from the shadows and lost voices of history speak once more. Today, we continue our journey into the burning heart of 1940s London, a city standing between silence and survival. As London entered its third week of bombing, fear was no longer a guest. It had become a permanent resident. Yet instead of collapsing, the city began to change. People didn't run from the darkness, they adapted to it. They learned how to walk without light, how to listen for danger in silence, and how to find hope in places where even sunlight didn't reach. Every evening, as the sun sank behind blacked-out rooftops, Londoners transformed into invisible soldiers. Mothers wrapped their children in blankets and carried them to deep tube stations before the first sirens began to wail. Fathers packed emergency rations, water bottles, and flashlights with dying batteries. Entire families sat underground for hours, even days, not knowing if the world above would still be standing when they emerged. And yet, life continued. Milkmen still delivered bottles the next morning, placing them carefully on shattered doorsteps. Newspapers still arrived with bold headlines, "London will not fall." People married in ruins. Babies were born in shelters. Laughter echoed in basements between explosions like rebellion wrapped in joy. But make no mistake, the enemy never rested. On December 29, 1940, London faced its fiercest night. It wasn't just bombing. It was a firestorm. Over 100,000 incendiary bombs fell from the sky, igniting more than 1,500 fires across the city. That night became known as the Second Great Fire of London. Entire blocks vanished. Historic buildings crumbled. But in the heart of the chaos, something incredible happened. St. Paul's Cathedral, the soul of the city, stood tall, untouched by flame. Civilians, firefighters, even priests formed a human wall around it, tossing buckets of water hand to hand hour after hour. The image of the dome rising through clouds of smoke became a symbol, not just of survival, but of sacred defiance. Hitler had wanted to break the city's spirit, but he only made it legendary. Because in 1940s London, even children knew. If the city goes dark, the people shine brighter.
As the firestorm of December 29th faded into smoke and rubble, London was not quiet. The silence that followed wasn't peace. It was a stunned breath, a pause between strikes, as if the city itself was bracing for the next blow. Ash still rained from the sky, drifting like black snow. Streets were lined not with cars, but with craters. And yet, even then, the people moved. Firemen who hadn't slept in 2 days were still dousing smoldering ruins. Volunteers dug through rubble with their bare hands, searching for voices. And in the wreckage of a bookshop, a woman was seen carefully brushing ash from the covers of burned books. History preserving history, even in war. In these moments, London wasn't just surviving. It was resisting. Not all battles were fought with flames. Some were fought in silence, shadows, and code. As the bombings raged, British intelligence operated in the background, using the cover of blackout to move agents, gather secrets, and confuse the enemy. MI5, Britain's domestic spy agency, recruited postmen, teachers, even pub owners to track German sympathizers. Codes were passed in newspapers. Spies met in candlelit basements. And while Hitler tried to blind the city, London's hidden eyes only grew sharper. But while courage burned in the streets, pain burned in private. Hospitals overflowed with wounded. Thousands suffered not just physical injury, but invisible trauma. Children woke screaming from dreams of falling ceilings. Mothers wrote names on their children's clothes, not for fashion, but so bodies could be identified. And yet, amidst this horror, the spirit of London refused to be erased. Every bomb that fell carved a scar, but also a memory. When churches collapsed, lessons moved to train tunnels. In one remarkable case, a wedding was held in a rubble-filled courtyard. No roof, no walls, just a people, a priest, and a promise: we will not let war decide how we love. Even laughter returned, carefully, like sunlight through broken windows. Comedians performed in shelters. Musicians played violins for families underground. Radio broadcasters shared jokes between news updates. The people were telling the world, "We are not just victims, we are voices." But the night was not over yet. As 1941 approached, Germany's strategy shifted, and something even more dangerous began. By the winter of 1941, London had become a battlefield of the soul. The physical destruction was overwhelming. Over 1 million homes damaged, entire neighborhoods reduced to bricks and ashes. But the greater war was now psychological. Each night, families asked the same silent question: will we still be here tomorrow? And still, the world above kept spinning, broken, bruised, but alive. In a bombed-out library, children sat on the floor, listening to a teacher read by candlelight. In the East End, a baker rebuilt his oven from the rubble of 3 shops. He made bread, not for profit, but to feed anyone who was still breathing. These weren't acts of survival, they were acts of quiet rebellion. But London's strength came at a price. The Luftwaffe, frustrated by the city's resilience, grew more aggressive. Now they bombed not only industrial targets, but civilian homes, schools, even hospitals. The idea was simple: break their hearts to break their will. One night, a hospital in South London took a direct hit. Nurses died shielding infants. In the silence that followed, one survivor wrote in her diary, "We stitched wounds with shaking hands, by candlelight, praying the roof would hold just one more hour." The enemy had taken to the skies, but London had gone underground, physically, emotionally, spiritually. By now, over 170,000 people were sleeping in the tube stations nightly. Entire families lived on train platforms. Walls were covered in names and messages. "We're still here. Mum, I love you. God save London." And yet, amidst the pain, hope did not die. During a bombing raid, a young violinist, no older than 17, stood at the mouth of a shelter and played Beethoven as The Sky Above roared. No microphone, no audience, just sound, refusing to be silenced. That night, people wept in silence, not because they were afraid, but because even in ruin, beauty had found a way to speak. Still, the danger was not over. British intelligence was receiving disturbing reports. Nazi bombers were preparing a new wave of destruction, something bigger, something deadlier, and this time, the target was not just London. It was Britain's spirit itself.
But a warning, a promise, a wound that refused to bleed out. But Hitler wasn't done. British intelligence intercepted chilling transmissions. Germany was preparing a final aerial assault, bigger than the Blitz, more calculated, not just to break London, but to humiliate it. On May 10, 1941, the sky opened once more. It was the deadliest raid of the entire Blitz. More than 700 bombers crossed into British airspace. Over 1,400 civilians were killed in a single night. Historic landmarks crumbled, the House of Commons, Westminster Abbey's roof, entire city blocks gone. The fires burned so hot, rescue crews had to wait hours just to enter buildings. And yet, the next morning, London woke up. Woke up to silence. Woke up to smoke. Woke up to life. No surrender. No flag lowered. No speech of defeat. Instead, a mother in Bethnal Green opened her shop. A boy in Brixton helped pull a stranger from rubble. And in the heart of London, a group of orphans stood around a burned piano and sang. But something changed that night, not just in London, but in Berlin. Hitler's campaign of terror had failed. London had not broken. It had endured. And behind that endurance, something was waiting. Silence. Because sometimes, silence is not fear. It's warning. Behind the rubble, behind the soot-covered walls and destroyed homes, Britain was building something. Something invisible. A code. A secret. A weapon of logic. In a hidden facility known only as Bletchley Park, mathematicians, linguists, and engineers were decoding German communications. The very bombers that ravaged London left behind frequencies, patterns, footprints. What the code, the enigma, would be broken within months. and it would change the war. But London never needed revenge. It needed light. By the end of 1941, the Blitz faded. The Luftwaffe turned elsewhere, and slowly light returned cautiously like a child stepping into a room once feared. Street lights flickered again, curtains were drawn back. Tube platforms became stations once more, not bedrooms. Yet even in light, the shadows remained. To this day, some buildings still carry shrapnel. Some families still have unmarked graves. Some memories still shake at the sound of distant thunder. Because London wasn't just bombed, it was marked. Marked by courage, marked by survival, marked by fire that never consumed its soul. This was the hidden timeline. If you listen closely in London's streets, under the rush of cars and chatter of crowds, you might still hear the echo of a time when the night fell hardest and the people stood brightest. Subscribe for more lost truths waiting to be uncovered.